Hi, everyone. Today on Not Your Average CEO Lifeline, we are going to be talking about business prosperity secrets, building a stable organization, particularly with cultivating winning teams. I know these two topics are different, yet they're similar in the whole pie that is operating a successful business. These avenues right now are something business owners are facing in the light of our economy and culture. Today, we are fortunate to have attorney, entrepreneur, author, speaker Louise Scott with us to embark on this conversation that can be really tricky, like I said, for business owners and executives. Louise, thank you so much. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got here today?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited about our conversation. My background is, my parents used to tell me I was going to be a comedian or a lawyer, and I always tell people I became a comedic lawyer. So I like to have a good time. When you're around me at the office, you never know when a Michael Scott from The Office joke will come out, which is kind of funny because my last name's Scott. But I love The Office. I love to have a good time. I always tell people that one of the reasons I'm so efficient is because I waste more time than anybody I know. So I have no other choice but to become efficient. But I got into the legal space because of a chance encounter. And I think a lot of times we don't value those moments where we meet somebody and they can really change your life. And I met a judge in a business law class in undergrad. He gave me an internship. I fell in love with this idea of the business of law. I went into the legal industry, became a lawyer, and then after 20 years, I started a consulting business that helps lawyers. So that's kind of like the full life of my current successful business. But in between that, as you know, there was a lot of failures. I tried all kinds of things that did not work out, but I learned a lot of things, in the process.
I recent quotes, they always say you cannot truly succeed unless you have experienced failure and you learn from those failures. So I'm really glad you touched on that. So the word predictability is something I think most business owners would love to hear more of, but it's just not the case.
Right.
So what do you feel are key principles or strategies to creating this predictability and prosperity in business?
One of the first things is acknowledging that people are predictable. And I think this is a very hard thing for people to accept in this world of individualism and this idea that we're all unique. And yes, our fingerprint is unique, and the way we look and our DNA, right? There's a billions of strands of DNA that make us unique, but our behaviors are predictable. And we know this because ballparks never run out of beer or hot dogs. Airlines always seem to have flights available. The hotel industry never seems to book completely out. There's always space. They know how to anticipate the needs of a particular individual. So and the reason they can do that is because of predictability. And I think it starts with believing that and understanding that things are predictable. And then asking the question, if things are predictable, what do people who are predictable need? And then meeting that need. And so if you want to create predictability in your life and in your business, acknowledging that things are predictable is number one. And then asking the question, in this world of predictability, what do people need? And then you find a product or a service that can meet that need for those individuals. I think fundamentally, those are the first things that you have to do. And then we can go into the business funnel, like creating predictable awareness campaigns, predictable lead generation, predictable sales conversion, predictable processes, predictable production, predictable revenue generation. And so it just kind of goes down the line. But it all starts with understanding that human behavior can, in fact, be predicted.
That's, I think, a really hard concept for a business owner to take outside of the box when they're really looking at their customers and clients, and they're maybe looking at where are they on social media, or they're looking in the nitty gritty, but to take an overall understanding that my leads and my clients are predictable is something that once brought to light is possible. It might be eye opening, I think, for a lot of our listeners.
Well, I think so many people, they walk around and they go, well, my business is unique and my people are unique. I had the chance to go to New York this winter, and I met a friend there. He lives in Brooklyn. Is Brooklyn a nice place? Yeah, it was a nice place. Yeah.
It depends on where you are in Brooklyn, I think.
I don't know my New York that well, but he was living in a nice place. Okay. And so he comes and meets us, and we're walking down the street. and we're in Lower Manhattan at the time, and there's Christmas trees. And in certain blocks, the Christmas trees were very small, and in certain blocks, the Christmas trees were very big. And I asked him, I said, "Why are the Christmas trees small on this block, and on the next block they're big?" And he says, "The size of the apartment. That's what matters. In this block where they're small, the apartments are small. But on that block, when they're big, the apartments are big." We're all predictable. We're all predictable. Even in the tree service business, there's predictability. And so it's you just got to acknowledge there is predictability. I don't care what you sell, whether it's social media services, websites, content creation services, whether it's lawyer services like what I sell or consulting, there is some predictability in people in that industry. You just have to tap into it. And that's going to be the key to finding predictability in your business.
Luis, I'd love to ask you. I love the concept that you're talking about. I think it makes a lot of sense and it really can simplify things for a lot of business owners that are maybe looking to go to market with something new or even just expand their existing reach. But do you get pushback from your clients when you tell them, there's always predictability in business? Do they typically tell you, no, not with my business? I don't think that would work here.
100%. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to admit it. Like nobody wants to admit that we're all predictable. But I'll ask them the question: how many? I'll be in a conference. How many people in here eat breakfast at 2 p.m.? Right? How many people in here brush their teeth at 1 in the morning? Like nobody did. Like there's a predictable nature to the way that we behave. The way we build roads is based upon the predictive nature of drivers. The way that we build subway systems is based on the predictive nature of commuters. Like everything is based on this concept of predictability. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you can't find some level of uniqueness in the individual, right? Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are big, some people are small, some people can sing, some people can't sing, some people can dance, some people can't dance. Those are unique characteristics. But when it comes to human behavior, we all tend to go on spring break during spring break. We all tend to go on summer vacation during the summer. Nobody goes on summer vacation in February, right? Like I've never heard of anybody say, "I'm going to go to the beach where it's really cold, like Panama City Beach. It's still cold in January, and I'm going to go lay out in the sun." Nobody does that. Well, guess what happens in Panama City? They close all the restaurants in January. All of the restaurants are closed in Panama City Beach in January. And the reason is because they know nobody's coming. Nobody's going to be there. In the summer, they have all the restaurants open and they have like little food trucks. They have guys walking around with ice cream machines. And so it has to do with predictability. And yes, I get pushback, but as soon as I show them how to create that predictable marketing plan, their eyes begin to open up.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, Louise, how do we connect now this predictability to our employees, right? And having this winning team? How can we bridge this gap and transition it from my clients and now to, having my employees that are, you know, the foundation of my business become, extremely successful and
Yeah,
thriving?
I love that question because one of my focuses is on team building, and I've hired 500 people in my career, and what I've learned, and this is something that I'm trying to teach my leaders to do, is that people very rarely quit on me. If they work with me directly, it's very unlikely that they will quit. In fact, my closest employees have worked with me for 5, 6, 7 years. In my previous firm, my closest employees had worked with me 10, 11, 12 years. Like very few people quit when they work with me. And the reason is because I have found that there's some things that every employee wants. Sure, some people want a gym membership and to work partly from home and virtual. Those are things that change based upon the needs of the individual. Like I have employees who want to work from home because they have small kids and they need to take them to school and pick them up from school. Well, that'll change because their kids won't be small forever, right? But there's certain things that never change, and this is what makes the human being predictable. Is they want a place where there's purpose for them. They want a place where they belong. They want a place where they're valued. Those are the three things. And so if you want to build a high impact team that really can change the world, that can actually make an impact, you need to find purpose for them. You need to give them the purpose. You need to be vision minded. You need to create an environment where they belong, where they feel like they're part of the team, that they're doing something that's meaningful. And I think that you also need to find a place where they can grow, where there's a place for them to continuously excel and grow and become who they were created to be. And if you do that by valuing them, which is the third thing that they want, which is that value piece, they're going to stay for a long time. And I've had a lot of success focusing on those three elements of the predictive nature of humans. And very few people will come to work and say, I want no purpose, I don't want to belong, and I want you to treat me like trash. No, I mean, right? Like nobody comes to work and asks for those three things. They always ask for the other thing. And when people leave, when they say they're not paying me enough, what they're saying is, you didn't value me for the work that I was doing. When they say the workplace is toxic, what they're saying is, I don't belong there. When they say, I don't know how I'm going to grow, what they're saying is, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my function is. I don't know what my reason for being here is. And so we have to learn how to read through what people say, because at the foundation, it's really those three things.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love that you mentioned each of those three things, but I would like to just touch a little bit about how you said one of them is to make people feel like they belong.
Mhm.
So, do you have tips for our audience on how they can make their team members feel that way? Especially, a lot of our audience are working with remote employees. Just like you mentioned, maybe they have small kids, or it's just sort of the wave of work right now. But do you have any practical tips for our audience on that area?
It's interesting because so many people don't make connections between things that naturally occur in their life. I'll give you an example. You see a sorority or a fraternity, or you see people that belong to a biker club. What you'll find is that they have very similar values and very similar beliefs. And so the key to making a place where people belong is clearly identifying the beliefs and the values that your organization is going to lead with. And I think that's where we make a lot of mistakes. People hire not based on core values, not based on culture fit, not based on beliefs. And then they wonder, why do people not gel? Well, because they're all over the place. And this could be a controversial subject, right? Because people want diversity. And I do agree in diversity. I'm a Hispanic. I agree in diversity. But diversity in belief system would be very, very difficult. I'm going to give you a very, very specific example in the political realm, and not to get political, but like if you were for a political subject, right? Whether it was the LGBT community or abortion, that's a hot topic right now. It would be very odd to have people who were also anti that in that organization, right? And so we
Yeah.
see it, we go, wait a second, wait. In the pro choice movement, we wouldn't have a pro-life person working there. That would be weird, right? And we acknowledge that in the natural occurrence of life. But then when we build our organizations, we hire people with all these different beliefs about the way business should run and the way organizations should function. And so, yes, we want diversity, but we want people to be bought in or to believe in what it is that we're building. Well, you have to have a concrete idea of what you're building. And so I always tell my business owners when I'm consulting them, you're not building a business, you're building a community. Okay, you're building a community like a fraternity or a sorority or a biker club. And if you're building that, what do you believe in? What is the culture that you want of that? My brother-in-law is actually in a biker club, and it's a Hispanic biker club. He's Mexican. Well, he's in a Hispanic biker club. Well, guess what? They attract Hispanic bikers. Like, I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the way that I'm saying it is like, well, duh. Like, they clearly want Hispanic bikers to be part of the Hispanic biker club. Okay. And so I think that we just have to stop this idealization of a perfect utopia in your business where everyone comes together with all these different crazy beliefs and somehow is going to function together, because that's not going to happen. If you want a high impact team, you need to figure out what your culture is, what your vision is, what is it that you stand for, what are you trying to grow, what's your community going to be like, and then you need to find people like that. Those people are going to feel like they belong, and it's going to be hard for them to leave because there's going to be just this magnetic pull for them to continue to be there.
That's really interesting. And, Danielle and I working in this remote environment, our team is diverse all over the United States, right? We have a remote um, company and our employees live in all
Mhm.
states. We cultivate flexibility, right? That is our employees work remote. You have to have flexibility. This is what we believe in. Um, the diverse skill set is something that we value a lot, right? You need to know what people sit in the right seats with these different skill sets that they bring to the table. But connecting predictability to what your belief system is, right, is a perfect match, right? You can predict who's going to be the winning employees because they believe in what you believe in and what your company believes in.
Of
So
course.
I really enjoyed that explanation.
Well, let me just say this, like, for instance, one of the things that we do, and just to go, I'm going to bring it to my business specifically, is we help law firm owners scale their business to 10 million in revenue or more, right? So who enjoys being part of my community? Law firm owners who want to scale their business to 10 million or more. And the ones that don't are not going to feel like they belong. In fact, I just recently had a law firm owner who, after 2 years, sent a termination notice for our services and said, I'm terminating not because I don't love you and love what you're doing and believe in what you're doing. I just don't belong in this group. I don't want to build my business to 10 million. I want to build my business to 3 or 4 million. She literally told me that in an email. Like, she knows she doesn't belong, not because we didn't love her and not because we didn't treat her well, but she knows she doesn't belong. And the same thing goes for my employees. If my employees do not want to help people scale their business, they're not going to belong. If they just want to help people grow a little bit, that's not going to work. They need to help them grow to 10 million and above. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say we don't need diversity in belief. It's we don't need people going against what we're trying to achieve. If I had employees who were like, no, 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 you don't need to help them go to 10 million. Don't do that. It's like, how would we ever achieve our goal if they're fighting against us? And a lot of times we hire people who are fighting against us, and then we wonder why they think it's toxic or why they think they don't belong. And it's because they didn't belong to begin with. They shouldn't have been there to begin with.
How do you or what kind of questions would you ask on an interview to weed out the people that don't belong? I think that's a great action item that we can give our listeners, right? What can I ask then on the interview to know whether or not they're going to belong, on my winning team?
You ask the question that's going to make them feel uncomfortable, that's going to trigger them to tell you that they don't belong. So I'll give you an example of something that I believe in. I believe that a person who reads a lot will generally be more successful than a person who doesn't. Now, there are people out there who do not believe that. I hear them all the time on social media. You don't have to read. All you have to do is take action, take action, take action, don't read, no reading. Reading is for dummies. Don't read. You don't have to read these books. And I see this, and they'll post like, oh, you hear about these people who read 52 books in a week. What a waste of time, right? So when they come into interview, I'll ask the candidate, let me ask you a question. How much do you read? How often do you read? What kind of books do you read? Do you enjoy reading? What do you believe reading does for an individual? Do you believe it's good for everyone to read? So I'll ask them all these questions to try to drive home the point. And if that person says, I don't believe you should read, I think you should just take action, I think that reading is a waste of time, look at me, I've become successful without reading, they're not going to fit in with me because I teach people to read. I teach people to grow themselves professionally. And so I'm going to know from the onset that they're not going to work out because they don't believe what I believe. And since they don't believe what I believe about business, it's probably not going to work out. So you can take any one of those things and then figure out the questions that you have to ask related to those things. And if you get to the core of every business owner has some sort of bias about something, For instance, you're talking about virtual work and flexibility. Well, guess what? I like my employees to be in the office. Like I may work well with you, you may work well with me, but you may not feel like you belong because I like people to come into the office. And it could be just the type of business I had. I had a personal injury law firm where every client that we serviced was localized, and the clients like to come in the office, and we had a lot of in-person things. And so I created this belief system that people work better in the office in personal injury, right? And so I would probably not be a really great candidate for you because I might drive myself crazy working virtually all the time.
Oh yeah, you definitely you definitely would. And
Yeah.
that is one of our key questions, right? It's working virtually can be very isolated, even though we create teams and we do our best, but you have to be proactive to communicate. So if they're not a good communicator, they're not going to fit in with our virtual environment. And there are some people that have never worked virtually before and they don't know. And then there are questions to say, well, is this going to really be for them? Because it's, I've worked both. I've traveled back and forth to Manhattan, and that's how I knew I can do this virtually with clients. I don't have to sit on a 2-hour train there and a 2-hour train back. This is crazy for me. And that was my stepping stone, right? But that was something I believed in, right? It was the
Yeah.
traffic to Manhattan was horrible. So I get it. Like you have to figure out what you want. And we ask our employees all the time, what do you feel is success means to you? Because
Mhm.
that's something that's going to connect them with us as well.
Yeah, and it's just all a matter of excluding those who are not going to fit in as much as it is including those who are going to fit in. And I think we have used the word exclude in such a negative way. Oh, we can't exclude anyone. Yes, we need to exclude people who are not going to fit in so that they don't later accuse us of having a toxic culture. You
Mhm.
know, when you think about, I look back at Bill Gates when he started IBM, and if you know the story of Bill Gates, he used to work 20 hours a day, and he demanded people to work 20 hours a day. Elon Musk, if you're going to work for me, you're going to work long, hard hours, 6 to 7 days a week. He actually says that. He's trying to exclude people like me who do not want to work 20 hours a day, right? But there's some crazy nuts out there, at least that's the way I look at it, who want to work 20 hours a day for Elon Musk, right? And so it's just interesting as small business owners, we see this happening, but we never attach it to our own situation and say, if they do that and they have to do that in order to find the right people, maybe I should do that too. And small business owners, they get looped into this. Oh, we got to create this the most diverse place, even if people don't agree with what I agree with, and it's not going to work because there's going to be so much infighting as to strategy that you're not going to be able to get off the ground.
And hiring and terminating and turnover is costly, right? We know that for a small business that can make or break, especially, at what level you're hiring your employees. So I think it's really important to understand you need to hire the right people and for the right reasons.
I mean, losing employees is probably one of the most devastating things that you can have happen in your organization. I'm very fortunate that I haven't had to terminate anyone in my firm, in my business in over a year. We don't have a big team. We have about 20 people right now. But the fact that I'm not having to terminate people is giving me more consistency, helping me create more efficiency, and that's eventually going to turn into more profitability.
Danielle, do you have any last minute questions for Luis before we ask him about not being your average CEO?
Well, I have so many questions for you because you've just given so many great insights, especially just around even hiring and managing and developing a culture in your company. So, if you could give, one piece of advice to our listeners that you want them to walk away with as an action step, because I know you have a lot of good insights. What would that be?
For me, it's to plan. Planning is probably the greatest thing that you can do. I've heard this quote before. If you were going to cut down a tree, you would sharpen the axe first. And sharpening the axe is planning. And planning doesn't have to be perfect. Planning is trying to create a roadmap that allows you to get somewhere faster than you otherwise would if you didn't have that roadmap. I tell my team, if I was driving down the road and the speed limit was 70 and it was a clear day, I could probably go 80. But if it was foggy, I probably should go 40, even though the speed limit's 70. And if you are an entrepreneur and you're starting off or you're trying to go to the next level in your business, the plan removes the fog. The plan allows you to go faster. The plan allows you to see more clearly. And so if you can't think about it and you can't write it down, then it's very likely that it's going to be very hard for you to accomplish it. Because generally speaking, every single thing that we've accomplished has started in our mind. Before the iPhone was created, someone thought about that. And before they created it, they wrote it down, right? And so if we had to think about the iPhone and then write it down and draw it before we had to actually execute on it, it's very likely that your business requires the same level of thought, the same level of writing, and then the same level of execution. So the number one thing for me is to create a plan, to do the research on your market, understand the predictive nature of the clientele that you're trying to reach, and then write it down and execute.
You drew me in. I'm a planner to my core. So I all you had to say is the word plan and I was roped in. The last question that we, of
Mhm.
course, ask all of our guests is what advice do you have on being not your average CEO and what does this mean to you?
Oh man, I think that not being the average CEO is all about changing the paradigm of leadership. And one of the things that I try to teach my leaders, even the ones that are non-entrepreneurs, but specifically the clients that I work with, because I work with almost primarily CEO lawyers, is that if you want an organization that thrives, we have to invert the paradigm. The people that work for you, they are not your cogs in a machine. They are human beings that deserve respect, that deserve you creating a business that allows them to fulfill their goals and dreams in their life, that deserve a great place to work. And one of the things I used to tell my team is that you only have one life experience, and it's my job to make sure that it's the best experience possible. And so, if you want to not be an average CEO, invert the paradigm, show respect, let them know that it's an honor for them to work for you, and they're not there just to fulfill every need you have, but rather you have a responsibility to help them fulfill the needs that they have as well. And so, I think that that's what it's all about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today, Luis. Can you tell our audience, and of course, we always put links in our show notes, but we like our audience, our guests to tell our audience where they can find more from you.
LuisScottJR.com, LuisScottJR.com. They can find all my links, social media, my books there. And I just released my second edition of The King of Growth. And it's all about how to do marketing in a way that unleashes the power of your business for personal and financial freedom. So they can check it out there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for giving such fantastic advice to our listeners that they really, I don't think, have heard before. I don't believe we've had any topic surrounding predictability in our 3 seasons. So thank you so much. And it was wonderful talking with you.
Thanks for having me.